There are people who work hard their entire lives and still feel like they are standing still. And then there are people who seem to move differently, think differently, build differently. They don't just earn money, they command it. And here's the truth. Most people never hear clearly enough. Money doesn't respond to effort. Money responds to behavior. In this audiobook, Money Habits of Billionaires, you're about to step into a different world, not a fantasy, not a lottery dream, but a system, a pattern, a set of behaviors repeated so consistently that wealth becomes inevitable. This is not financial advice. This is not a promise of overnight success. This is education, awareness, a shift in identity. Because wealth is not something you chase. It's something you become aligned with. Over the next chapters, you will uncover the habits that separate those who stay stuck from those who scale beyond imagination. You will learn how billionaires think about money before they ever have it, why discipline matters more than intelligence, why most people sabotage wealth without even realizing it, how to turn income into leverage and leverage into freedom, and most importantly, how to rebuild your relationship with money from the inside out. Because everything you're about to hear follows one core idea, an idea echoed across countless successful minds and systems of thinking, even reflected in teachings like those found in That Wealth is Built in the Mind long before it appears in reality. Here is your first truth. You don't rise to the level of your income, you fall to the level of your habits. And if you stay with this, truly stay with it, you will not finish this audiobook the same person who started it. But before we begin, ask yourself one question. Not what you want to earn, not what you want to buy, not what you want to show. Ask yourself this: who do I need to become to never worry about money again? Because that is where this journey begins. And what you're about to discover in Chapter 1 might challenge everything you thought you knew about wealth. Chapter 1. You are the asset, the habit that changes everything. Most people spend their lives trying to acquire assets, stocks, real estate, crypto, businesses. But billionaires start somewhere completely different. They start with one asset, the only asset that truly matters in the beginning: themselves. Let's slow that down, because this is where everything shifts. If you don't see yourself as the primary asset, you will always depend on something outside of you: a job, a market, a lucky break. And dependency is the opposite of wealth. Think about it. If your income disappears tomorrow, what remains? Your skills, your thinking, your discipline, your network, your ability to create. That is your real net worth. Not your bank account, not your possessions, but your capacity to generate value on demand. Billionaires understand this early. They don't ask, how can I make money? They ask, how can I become more valuable? And that question changes everything, because when you become valuable, money follows. Not immediately, not magically, but inevitably. Most people reverse this. They chase money without upgrading themselves. They look for shortcuts without building capability. They want results without becoming the kind of person who can sustain them. And even if they get lucky, they lose it, because you can't hold what you haven't become. Let that sink in. You cannot hold what you have not become. So what does it actually mean to treat yourself as an asset? It means you invest in yourself the same way others invest in markets, with patience, with consistency, with long-term vision. It means you study, not occasionally, but daily. It means you build skills that are rare, valuable, and scalable. It means you protect your energy, your focus, your attention like they are currency, because they are. Every hour you waste is an investment in staying the same. Every distraction you allow is a withdrawal from your future. And billionaires, they are ruthless about this, not because they are obsessed with money, but because they understand something deeper. Time is the only resource you cannot compound later. You either use it or you lose it. Now here's where it becomes uncomfortable, because if you're honest with yourself, how much time are you truly investing in becoming better? Not scrolling, not consuming mindlessly, not escaping, but actually improving, learning, practicing, building, because this is where the gap begins, the gap between intention and transformation. And this is why so many people stay stuck, not because they lack opportunity, but because they underestimate themselves. They don't see themselves as an asset worth developing. They wait for external change instead of internal growth. But billionaires, they flip that completely. They build themselves first, and then everything else multiplies. Here's a powerful shift you need to make right now. Stop asking, what can I get? Start asking, what can I become? Because becoming is the real game. And once you understand that, you stop chasing fast money. You stop comparing timelines. You stop looking for validation. You start building quietly, consistently, relentlessly, and one day people will look at your results and call it luck. But you will know the truth. It was never luck. It was the daily decision to treat yourself like the most important investment in your life. Now here's something most people don't expect. This habit, this simple shift of seeing yourself as the asset, it doesn't just change your income, it changes your identity. Because when you value yourself, you stop settling for low-paying opportunities, for toxic environments, for distractions that drain you. You raise your standards, and higher standards create higher outcomes always. So here's your challenge. Starting today, track how you invest in yourself. Not your money, yourself. What are you learning? What are you building? What are you improving? Because if you're not growing, you're slowly declining. There is no neutral. And billionaires, they understand that better than anyone. They are always evolving, always learning, always adapting, because the world moves fast. And if you stay the same, you fall behind. But if you commit to growth, you become unstoppable, not overnight, but over time. And time, when used correctly, becomes your greatest ally. So remember this, you are not broke because you lack money. You are broke because you haven't fully developed your most valuable asset yet. And once you do, everything begins to change. But here's the next layer most people never see. Even if you become valuable, even if you start earning more, there is still one habit that determines whether you stay rich or fall back to zero. And in Chapter 2, we're going to uncover the silent habit that quietly destroys wealth, even for people who make millions. And once you see it, you will never look at money the same way again. Dear viewer, we now have over 150 videos on our channel. That's a huge number, and we want to thank you, our viewers and subscribers, so much for that. You inspire us to create great videos every time and choose the best topics for our audiobooks. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to do so. We have big plans for this channel. Thank you. Chapter 2. The Silent Leak: Why Most People Lose Money. even when they earn more. There's a moment in most people's lives where they finally start making more money. A promotion, a new job, a business that begins to grow, and for a short time, it feels like everything is working. Relief, confidence, a sense of progress. But then something strange happens. The bank account doesn't grow the way they expected. The stress doesn't disappear. The freedom never fully arrives. And slowly, almost invisibly, they end up in the same place they started, just with bigger numbers. This is the silent leak, and it destroys more wealth than failure ever could, because failure is obvious. But this feels like success, while quietly draining everything. Let's break it down. Most people think the goal is to earn more, but billionaires know earning more without controlling behavior is just accelerating the problem. If your habits don't change, your income doesn't matter, because money flows through habits, not intentions, not goals. Habits. Think about it. If someone earns $1,000 and spends $1,100, they struggle. If they earn $10,000 and spend $11,000, they still struggle. The numbers change, the result doesn't, because the habit stayed the same. This is why some people win the lottery and end up broke within years. This is why athletes sign million-dollar contracts and later face bankruptcy. It's not a lack of money, it's a lack of control, a lack of awareness, a lack of discipline. And here's the uncomfortable truth: money amplifies who you already are. If you are careless with little, you will be careless with a lot. If you are intentional with little, you will multiply a lot. So the real question is not, how much do you earn? The real question is, what do you do with what you earn? Because that determines everything. Now let's go deeper. There are 3 silent leaks that most people never notice. The first is lifestyle inflation. You earn more, so you spend more. Better phone, better clothes, better car, better apartment, and none of these are bad. But here's the problem. They grow faster than your wealth. So instead of gaining freedom, you gain pressure, more bills, more expectations, more dependency. You upgrade your lifestyle, but you don't upgrade your foundation, and eventually it collapses. The second leak is emotional spending. This one is dangerous because it feels justified. You're stressed, so you buy something. You're bored, so you spend. You feel behind, so you try to look ahead. Money becomes therapy. But here's the truth. If money becomes your emotional escape, it will never become your tool. And billionaires, they detach emotion from spending, not completely, but strategically. They don't spend to feel better. They spend to create value or enhance life intentionally, not impulsively. And the third leak is the most invisible one: lack of tracking. Most people don't actually know where their money goes. They guess, they assume, they avoid. But what you don't track, you cannot control. And what you cannot control will control you. Wealth requires awareness, clarity, precision, because money is not just numbers. It's behavior in motion, and if you ignore it, it slips away. Now here's the shift. Billionaires don't just earn money, they direct it. Every dollar has a purpose, every decision has intention, every move aligns with a bigger system, because they understand something simple. Wealth is not built by what you make. It's built by what you keep and how you use it. Let that land. What you keep and how you use it. That's the real game. So what can you do starting today? Start small. Awareness first. Track your spending for the next 7 days. No judgment, no guilt, just clarity. Where is your money going? What patterns do you see? What habits are repeating? Because once you see the pattern, you gain power over it. Then begin to adjust, not everything at once, just one habit, one leak, one decision, because small changes, when consistent, create massive shifts over time. This is how control begins, not with restriction, but with awareness. And here's the part most people miss. This is not about becoming cheap. It's about becoming intentional. There's a difference, a big one. Cheap people avoid spending. Wealthy people control spending. One is fear-based, the other is power-based, and power is what builds freedom. So don't aim to restrict your life, aim to direct it. Because when you control where your money goes, you control where your life goes. Now pause for a moment, really pause, and ask yourself, are you in control of your money? Or is your money in control of you? Because your answer to that question is your current financial reality. And if this chapter hit something inside you, if you felt that quiet realization, that maybe, just maybe, the issue isn't income, but habits, then do something simple. Make a commitment, not to me, to yourself, a personal contract, that from this moment forward, you will not ignore your money. You will face it, understand it, control it, because that decision alone separates those who drift from those who build. And if this resonated with you, take a second to acknowledge it, because awareness is the first step toward transformation. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to step into something even more powerful, because controlling money is one thing, but multiplying it, that's a completely different game. And most people never learn the rule that changes everything. The rule that billionaires follow, even when no one is watching. And once you understand it, you will never look at saving, investing, or growth the same way again. Chapter 3. The Rule of Multiplication. Why saving alone will never make you rich. Most people are taught one version of money. Work hard, earn, save. And for a long time, that sounds responsible, safe, logical, correct. But here's the uncomfortable truth that almost nobody says out loud. Saving money alone will never make you rich. It can protect you. It can stabilize you. It can give you breathing room. But it will not create freedom. Because money that sits still does not grow. And billionaires, they don't just save money. They multiply it. Let's slow this down, because this is one of the most important shifts you will ever make. Saving is about preservation. Multiplication is about expansion. And if you only focus on preservation, you are playing defense your entire life, always protecting, always holding, always afraid to lose. But wealth is built on offense, calculated moves, strategic risks, intentional growth. Now, this doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean gambling. It doesn't mean chasing trends. It means understanding a principle that quietly governs wealth. Money is a tool, and tools are meant to be used. If you treat money like something to hide, it will never work for you. If you treat money like something to deploy, it begins to move, and when money moves correctly, it grows. This is where most people get stuck. They've been conditioned to fear losing money, so they avoid using it. They avoid investing. They avoid opportunities. They stay in comfort, but comfort comes at a cost. Because while your money sits, inflation rises, opportunities pass, time moves forward, and slowly your money loses power. Not because you did something wrong, but because you didn't do anything at all. Now let's be clear. Billionaires don't risk blindly. They don't throw money at everything. They follow a different rule, a simple but powerful one. Every dollar must have a job, not just sitting, working, creating value, generating return, building leverage. And this doesn't require millions to start. It requires a shift in thinking. Instead of asking, how can I save more? Start asking, how can this money grow? That question changes your decisions. Suddenly, you think differently, you research, you learn, you analyze, you become intentional. Because now, money is not just something you protect, it's something you deploy. And here's where it gets deeper. Multiplication is not just about investments, it's about mindset. Because the same thinking that multiplies money multiplies opportunities, skills, connections, ideas. Everything begins to expand. This is why wealthy people focus so heavily on growth, not just financially, but mentally. Because the more you grow, the more you see, the more you see, the more you can act on. And the more you act on, the more you create. It becomes a cycle, a powerful one. Now let's talk about fear, because this is where most people hesitate. What if I lose money? What if I make the wrong decision? What if it doesn't work? These questions are normal, but they can also trap you. Because here's the truth. You will make mistakes. Everyone does, even billionaires. The difference? They learn faster, they adjust quicker, they don't stop. Because they understand something critical. Not using money is also a risk. A silent one, a slow one, but a real one. So instead of trying to avoid all mistakes, focus on making better decisions, educated decisions, intentional decisions. Because growth comes from movement, not perfection. Now here's a practical shift you can make. Start thinking in percentages, not amounts. Instead of waiting until you have enough, use what you have, even if it's small. Allocate a portion, a percentage, to learning how to multiply, investing, building, experimenting, because the habit matters more than the number. And once the habit is built, the numbers follow. This is how billionaires think. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They create momentum, and momentum is what builds wealth over time. Now pause again and ask yourself, is your money sitting or is it moving? Because that answer determines your future. And if this chapter shifted something for you, if you felt that realization, that maybe saving alone is not the answer, then you're starting to see the bigger picture. This is where transformation begins. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful. Because even if you learn how to multiply money, there is still one habit that determines how fast you grow. A habit that billionaires protect more than anything else. More than money, more than assets, more than status. And once you understand it, you will realize why most people stay busy but never become wealthy. Chapter 4, The Attention Economy. Why your focus is more valuable than money. There is something more valuable than money, more limited than time, and more powerful than talent. Most people give it away every single day without thinking, without tracking, without realizing the cost. It is your attention, and billionaires protect it like their life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Let's be honest for a moment. How many times today did your attention get pulled in 10 different directions? Notifications, messages, scrolling, endless content. You start one task, then switch again. And by the end of the day, you feel busy, but not productive, tired, but not fulfilled. This is not an accident. This is a system designed to capture your attention and keep it, because your attention is profitable for someone else. But here's the problem. Every moment you give your attention away, you take it away from your own growth. And growth is where wealth is built. Now think about this. If you had $1 million, would you hand it out randomly to strangers all day? Of course not. You would protect it. You would allocate it carefully. You would make sure it creates value. But your attention? You give it away freely to things that don't matter, to people who don't elevate you, to content that doesn't build you. And over time, that becomes your life. Because attention shapes reality. What you focus on, you become. And billionaires understand this deeply. They don't just manage money, they manage attention relentlessly. They decide what deserves their focus and what doesn't, because they know distraction is the enemy of wealth. Not lack of opportunity, not lack of intelligence, distraction. Because if you cannot focus, you cannot build. If you cannot build, you cannot scale. And if you cannot scale, you stay stuck, no matter how hard you try. Now here's where it gets real. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they lack sustained attention. They start things, but don't finish. They learn, but don't apply. They try, but get distracted. And over time, this creates a pattern of inconsistency. And inconsistency destroys momentum. Now compare that to someone who protects their focus. They sit down and work deeply. No interruptions, no distractions, just pure attention for 1 hour, 2 hours, day after day. That person will outperform almost anyone, not because they are smarter, but because they are focused. And focus is a multiplier. It turns effort into results. It turns time into progress. It turns ideas into reality. This is why billionaires build environments that protect their attention. They limit noise. They reduce distractions. They create systems because they know every second of focused attention is an investment. Now here's something powerful. You don't need to be rich to do this. You just need to decide. Decide that your attention matters. Decide that your focus is valuable. Decide that you will no longer give it away carelessly. Start small. 1 hour, just 1 hour a day. No phone, no distractions. Just focused work on something that builds you. A skill, a project, a system. That 1 hour will change your life because it compounds just like money. Day after day, week after week, until one day you look back and realize you've built something real. This idea echoes a deeper truth seen across powerful mindsets. That consistent, focused effort, even just 1 hour a day, can reshape your entire direction, as highlighted in concepts like, because time is not the issue. Attention is. Now let's go deeper. Attention is not just about productivity, it's about identity. Because what you consistently focus on becomes who you are. If you focus on problems, you become reactive. If you focus on growth, you become proactive. If you focus on distractions, you become scattered. But if you focus on building, you become powerful. And power is what creates wealth. Now pause and be honest. Where is your attention going right now, every day? Is it building you or draining you? Because that answer is shaping your future. And here's the shift. You don't need more time. You need better focus. You don't need more opportunities. You need deeper attention. Because when you control your attention, you control your direction. And when you control your direction, you control your results. So starting today, protect your focus. Guard it. Use it intentionally, because your attention is the gateway to everything you want. And if this hit you, if you felt that realization, then make a decision, a simple one, that you will stop giving your attention away to things that don't build your future, because that decision alone can change everything. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover a habit that feels uncomfortable at first, but separates those who stay average from those who build extraordinary wealth. A habit that requires discipline, but creates massive leverage. And once you understand it, you will realize why comfort is one of the biggest obstacles to becoming rich. Dear viewer, share your success story, even if it is small. It can motivate other people to visit the comment section and read it, and it can inspire them. Also, don't be shy about asking questions, and perhaps someone with more experience or someone who has been through this will share the answer. Remember, it is only through communication that people become stronger and better. Thank you. Chapter 5. Comfort is the trap. Why ease is the enemy of wealth. There is a version of your life that feels safe, predictable, manageable, comfortable. You know your routine, you know your limits, you know what to expect. And at first, that feels like stability. But over time, it becomes something else. It becomes a cage, invisible, but powerful. Because here's the truth most people avoid. Comfort doesn't build wealth. Comfort maintains mediocrity. Let that sit with you, because this is where the real separation begins, between those who stay where they are and those who rise. Now let's be clear. Comfort is not bad. Rest is necessary. Peace is valuable. Balance matters. But comfort as a default state, that's dangerous, because growth does not happen there. Growth happens in friction, in challenge, in uncertainty, in moments where you feel stretched. And billionaires, they train themselves to move toward that discomfort, not away from it, because they understand something most people don't. Discomfort is a signal that you are expanding. Now think about your current life. Where are you choosing comfort over growth? Is it in your work? Doing just enough to stay safe? Is it in your habits? Repeating the same patterns every day? Is it in your thinking? Avoiding risks? Avoiding change? Because every time you choose comfort, you delay your future. You postpone your potential, and slowly that becomes your identity, a comfortable life that never evolves. Now here's the deeper layer. Comfort doesn't just keep you stuck. It rewires your mind. It teaches you to avoid effort, to avoid risk, to avoid challenge. And over time, you lose your edge, you lose your hunger, you lose your ability to push. And without that, wealth becomes almost impossible. Because building wealth requires pressure, decision-making under uncertainty, taking calculated risks, moving without guarantees. And if your mind is trained to avoid discomfort, you will avoid the very actions that create wealth. Now let's flip the perspective. Imagine a different approach. Instead of asking, quote, 13, you ask, quote, 14. That one shift changes everything. Because now you seek challenge, you lean into difficulty, you train your mind to handle pressure, and over time, you become stronger, more capable, more resilient, and that translates directly into your financial life. Because the same person who avoids discomfort avoids opportunity. But the person who embraces discomfort creates it. Now, here's something important Discomfort doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean reckless decisions. It means intentional stretch. Doing things that are slightly beyond your current ability. Learning skills that feel difficult. Taking steps that feel uncertain. Making decisions that require courage. This is how you grow. Step by step, layer by layer. Until one day, what once felt uncomfortable becomes normal and your capacity expands. Now let's bring this back to money, because this is where most people hesitate. They stay in jobs they've outgrown because it's comfortable. They avoid learning new skills because it's hard. They don't start businesses because it's uncertain. And they tell themselves, quote 15, but later becomes never. Because comfort today creates regret tomorrow. And billionaires, they refuse to live like that. They move before they feel ready. They act before they feel comfortable. They understand that waiting for comfort is the fastest way to stay stuck. Now, pause again and ask yourself, what discomfort have you been avoiding? What challenge have you been delaying? What step do you know deep down you need to take? Because that is your next level, and it's waiting on the other side of action. Now here's your challenge. Starting today, do one uncomfortable thing every day. One. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to stretch you. A difficult conversation, a new skill, a bold decision, something that moves you forward. Because those small moments stack. They build confidence, they build strength, they build momentum, and momentum is what creates breakthroughs. This idea connects deeply with the principle that real progress is found in what is difficult, not what is easy. Something consistently reinforced in high-performance mindsets like, because easy does not change you, but effort does. Now let this sink in. Your future is hidden inside the things you avoid. And once you start facing them, everything begins to shift. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful. Because becoming comfortable with discomfort is only the beginning. There is another habit, a quiet one, that determines how fast you rise once you start moving. A habit that billionaires use daily to accelerate growth and avoid costly mistakes. And once you understand it, you will realize why learning the right way is more important than working harder. Chapter 6, Learn Like the Rich. Why information alone will not make you wealthy. There has never been a time in history where information was more accessible. Books, podcasts, courses, videos, endless knowledge at your fingertips. And yet, most people stay exactly where they are. Same income, same habits, same results. So what's missing? If information is everywhere, why isn't wealth? Because here's the truth. Information does not create transformation. Application does. Let that settle in, because this is where most people fall into a trap. They consume, but they don't apply. They listen, but they don't execute. They learn, but they don't change. And over time, learning becomes a form of comfort. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But without action, it changes nothing. Now compare that to how billionaires approach learning. They don't learn to feel smart. They learn to act. Every piece of information is filtered through one question. Quote, _16__, not someday, not eventually, now. Because they understand something powerful. Speed of implementation is what separates winners from observers. Most people wait. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they know enough. They wait until the timing feels perfect, but perfect timing never comes. And while they wait, someone else acts, someone else builds, someone else learns through experience. And over time, that gap becomes impossible to close. Now let's go deeper. There are two types of learning: passive learning and active learning. Passive learning is easy: listening while distracted, watching without focus, reading without reflection. It gives you idea but not results. Active learning is different. It requires effort, attention, engagement, execution. You take notes, you test ideas, you apply immediately, and that creates change, because now you're not just consuming knowledge, you're building skill, and skill is what creates value. Now here's where it gets even more important. Billionaires don't just learn broadly. They learn strategically. They focus on high-impact knowledge, skills that generate income, skills that create leverage, skills that solve real problems, because not all knowledge is equal. Some information entertains you, some information transforms you, and the difference is intention. So instead of asking, quote, 17, start asking, quote, 18. That question filters everything, because now you're not learning randomly, you're learning with purpose, and purpose creates direction. Now let's talk about something most people avoid: mistakes. Because when you start applying, you will make them, you will fail, you will get things wrong, you will feel uncertain. But here's the shift: mistakes are not the opposite of success. They are part of the process. And billionaires, they don't fear mistakes. They extract lessons. They move forward faster, because every mistake is feedback. Every failure is information. And the faster you learn from it, the faster you grow. Now think about this. Would you rather spend years learning without action, or months learning through doing? Because one leads to stagnation, the other leads to momentum, and momentum is everything. Now here's your challenge. From this moment forward, don't just consume. Apply immediately. If you learn something, use it, test it, implement it, even if it's imperfect, because imperfect action beats perfect hesitation every time. And this principle connects deeply with a powerful truth seen across high-performance thinking, that growth only happens when knowledge turns into action, not just awareness. A pattern echoed in teachings like, because knowing is not enough. Doing is what changes everything. Now pause again and ask yourself, how much of what you've learned have you actually applied? Because your answer is your current reality. And if you're ready to change that, it starts now. One idea, one action, one step forward. That's all it takes. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to unlock something even more powerful, because once you learn how to apply knowledge, there is still one habit that determines how far you go. A habit that controls your consistency, your discipline, your ability to follow through, even when you don't feel like it. And once you understand it, you will realize why motivation is not the answer, and why relying on it is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Chapter 7. Discipline over motivation, the habit that decides your future. There are days when you feel unstoppable. You wake up early, you're focused, driven, clear, everything feels aligned. And then there are days when you feel nothing, no energy, no drive, no urgency, just resistance. And this is where most people lose, not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they rely on something unreliable: motivation. Let's be honest. Motivation feels powerful, but it's temporary. It comes and goes. It rises and falls. It depends on mood, energy, environment. And if your progress depends on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent. But billionaires, they don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline because they understand one simple truth. Discipline is doing what must be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. And that changes everything. Now let's go deeper. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation says, quote, 19. Discipline says, quote, 20. And wealth is built on the second one, because the actions that create wealth are not always exciting. They are repetitive, structured, sometimes boring, learning, tracking, building, improving, day after day. And if you only act when you feel inspired, you will never stay consistent long enough to see results. Now think about this. What separates someone who succeeds from someone who starts and stops? It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's the ability to follow through, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when no one is watching. That is discipline. And discipline is what builds momentum. Because when you act consistently, you create progress. And progress creates confidence. And confidence keeps you going. It becomes a cycle, a powerful one, but it starts with discipline. Now here's where most people struggle. They try to rely on willpower. They say, quote, 21, quote, 22. But willpower fades, especially when you're tired, stressed, distracted. So what do billionaires do differently? They don't rely on willpower. They build systems, routines, schedules, environments, structures that make discipline automatic, because they know if you remove the need to decide, you increase the chance of action. Let's break that down. If you have to decide every day whether to work, whether to learn, whether to build, you will eventually choose comfort. But if it's part of your system, you just do it. No debate, no hesitation. It becomes identity. Now imagine this. You wake up, and instead of asking, quote, 23, you already know, because you've built a routine, a structure, a standard. That removes the question. That is power, because now your results are not dependent on your mood. They are driven by your habits, and habits create outcomes. Now let's bring this back to money, because this is where discipline becomes critical. Tracking your finances, investing consistently, building income streams. These are not one-time actions. They are repeated behaviors. And without discipline, they fall apart. You skip tracking, you delay investing, you avoid difficult decisions, and over time, that costs you everything. But with discipline, you stay consistent, you follow through, you build momentum, and momentum creates growth. Now here's the truth most people avoid. Discipline is uncomfortable. It requires effort, sacrifice, consistency. But the alternative? Regret. Because every time you choose comfort over discipline, you delay your future. And those delays add up. Now pause and ask yourself, where are you relying on motivation instead of discipline? Where are you waiting to quote 24 instead of acting? Because that gap is holding you back. Now, here's your challenge. Starting today, remove the option. Don't ask yourself if you feel like it. Decide in advance. Set a standard and follow it no matter what. Because The moment you stop negotiating with yourself, you start building real strength. And this principle reflects a deeper truth seen across high-performance systems, that discipline is not optional. It's forced into your life through action, not feelings, as reinforced in teachings like, because discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Now let this sink in. You don't need more motivation. You need stronger discipline. And once you build it, everything changes. Your habits, your results, your identity. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful. Because discipline helps you act. But there is another habit that determines what you act on. A habit that shapes your decisions, your direction, and your long-term success. And once you understand it, you will realize why thinking long-term is the ultimate advantage in building wealth. Dear viewers, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 8. The Long Game. Why billionaires think in decades, not days. Most people are in a hurry to earn, a hurry to succeed, a hurry to make it. They want results now, validation now, proof now. And because of that, they make decisions based on the moment, not the future. They choose what feels good today over what builds tomorrow. And that is why they stay stuck. Because here's the truth. Short-term thinking creates short-term results. Long-term thinking creates lasting wealth. Billionaires understand this at a level most people never reach. They are not obsessed with quick wins. They are obsessed with sustained growth. They think in years, in decades, in lifetimes, and that shift changes every decision they make. Now let's slow this down. Imagine two people. The first one asks, "How can I make money this month?" The second one asks, "How can I build something that pays me for the next 10 years? Same desire, different mindset, completely different outcome. Because the first person will chase opportunities, trends, quick returns. And sometimes they might win, but it won't last. Because it's not built on structure, it's built on urgency. The second person, they build systems, skills, assets, things that grow over time. And while it might feel slower in the beginning, it becomes unstoppable later. This is the power of long-term thinking. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because long-term thinking requires patience. And patience feels like delay. It feels like you're not moving fast enough, like you're falling behind, especially in a world where everyone is posting wins, showing results, highlighting success. But here's what you don't see. The years behind those moments, the consistency, the discipline, the quiet work. Because real wealth is built slowly, then suddenly. Now let's go deeper. Long-term thinking changes how you see everything. You stop asking, "What do I want right now?" And you start asking, "What will this decision cost me in 5 years?" That question filters your actions, spending decisions, career choices, habits. Because now you're not reacting, you're planning. And planning creates control. Now think about your current habits, the things you do every day. Ask yourself, if I continue this for the next 5 years, where will I end up? Because that is your trajectory. And most people don't like the answer, because they're living for today at the expense of tomorrow. But billionaires, they reverse it. They sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term freedom. They delay gratification not because they have to, but because they understand the payoff. And here's the key. Everything compounds. Your habits, your money, your skills, everything. So if your habits are weak, they compound negatively. If your habits are strong, they compound positively. And over time, that difference becomes massive. Now let's bring this back to money, because this is where long-term thinking becomes powerful. Most people focus on earning, but billionaires focus on building. Assets that grow, investments that compound, systems that scale, because they know time is the ultimate multiplier. And if you give your money time, it works for you. But if you chase quick returns, you reset the clock over and over again. Now here's something important. Long-term thinking doesn't mean doing nothing today. It means doing the right things today that pay off tomorrow. It means building foundations, skills, systems, discipline, because those foundations support everything else. Now pause again and ask yourself, are your current decisions aligned with your future or just your present? Because that answer is shaping your life. Now, here's your challenge. Before every major decision, ask one question. How will this affect me in 5 years? And be honest, because that question alone can prevent costly mistakes and guide you toward better choices. This mindset reflects a deeper principle seen across successful thinking patterns. That long-term vision, not short-term emotion, is what separates those who build lasting wealth from those who stay reactive, a concept aligned with teachings like. Because wealth is not about speed, it's about direction. And if your direction is clear, time becomes your greatest advantage. Now let this sink in. The life you want is built by the decisions you repeat. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. And those decisions must be aligned with the long game. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to unlock something even more powerful. Because thinking long-term is critical. But there is another habit that determines how fast your long-term vision becomes reality. A habit that controls your environment, your influence, and your growth. And once you understand it, you will realize why the people around you are either accelerating your wealth or quietly limiting it. Chapter 9. Your circle shapes your wealth. The hidden influence. You can't ignore. There is a force in your life. Quiet, constant, and incredibly powerful. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention, but it shapes your decisions, your standards, your future. That force is the people around you. Now pause for a moment. Think about the conversations you have every day, the energy you're exposed to, the mindset of the people closest to you. Because whether you realize it or not, you are being influenced constantly. And here's the truth. Your environment will either elevate you or quietly limit you. There is no neutral. Now, this doesn't mean you need to cut people off or isolate yourself, but it does mean you need to become aware, because awareness creates choice, and choice creates change. Let's go deeper. Most people don't choose their environment. They inherit it. Friends from school, colleagues from work, people they've known for years. And over time, they adopt the same patterns, the same beliefs, the same limitations. Because proximity creates similarity. If you spend time around people who complain, you start complaining. If you spend time around people who avoid growth, you start avoiding growth. If you spend time around people who think small, you start thinking small. And slowly, your potential shrinks. not because you lack ability, but because your environment reinforces mediocrity. Now compare that to someone who intentionally chooses their circle. They surround themselves with people who think bigger, move faster, act differently, people who challenge them, push them, inspire them, and over time, they rise because now their environment demands more from them. This is why billionaires are extremely intentional about who they spend time with, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. They know who you listen to becomes who you become. So they choose wisely. Now here's something important. Your circle is not just physical, it's digital. What you watch, what you listen to, what you consume. Because in today's world, your environment is everywhere. On your phone, in your headphones, on your screen. And if you're not intentional, you will absorb whatever is in front of you. So the question becomes, what are you feeding your mind? Because that is shaping your thinking. Now let's bring this back to money, because this is where the impact becomes clear. If everyone around you sees money as scarce, you will too. If they believe wealth is unattainable, you will feel the same. If they avoid financial growth, you will hesitate. But if you surround yourself with people who understand money, who build, who invest, who grow, everything changes, because now your standard shifts, your expectations rise, your actions follow, and action creates results. Now, here's the challenge. Sometimes your current environment will not support your growth. It might resist it, question it, even discourage it, not because people want to hold you back, but because your growth challenges their comfort, and that can be uncomfortable for them. So they try to pull you back to what's familiar, to what's safe. But here's the truth. If you don't outgrow your environment, you will be limited by it. And growth requires change. Now, this doesn't mean abandoning people. It means expanding your circle, adding new influences, new perspectives, new standards, because the more you expose yourself to higher thinking, the more your own thinking evolves. Now, here's a simple shift you can make. Audit your environment, not just people, but everything. What conversations are you having? What content are you consuming? What ideas are you absorbing? And ask yourself, is this building me or holding me back? Because that answer is shaping your future. Now here's something powerful. You don't need direct access to billionaires to learn from them. You can study them, their habits, their decisions, their mindset. You can learn from books, from interviews, from experiences shared, because influence doesn't require proximity. It requires intention. This idea connects with a deeper truth seen across growth-focused thinking, that your environment, whether physical or mental, determines your direction, a pattern reflected in high-performance philosophies like, because you become what you surround yourself with. Now pause again and ask yourself, who is influencing your life right now? And is that influence taking you closer to where you want to be or further away? Because once you see it, you can change it, and that change can accelerate everything. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more critical, because your environment shapes you. But there is another habit that determines how you respond to challenges, a habit that separates those who break under pressure from those who build through it. And once you understand it, you will realize why your mindset during difficult moments is what truly defines your future. Chapter 10. Pressure reveals you. the habit that defines who you become. Under stress, there will be moments in your life when things don't go as planned. Plans fail, money drops, opportunities disappear. And in those moments, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to your habits. Let that sit with you, because this is where the real test begins. Not when everything is easy, but when everything is uncertain. Because here's the truth. Pressure doesn't break you. It reveals you. It reveals how you think, how you react, who you really are when comfort disappears. Now think about your last difficult moment. Did you stay clear or did you panic? Did you act intentionally or emotionally? Did you move forward or freeze? Because your response is not random. It's trained, built over time, through your habits, your thinking, your discipline, and billionaires, they train for pressure, not just success, because they understand something most people ignore. The higher you rise, the more pressure you face, more responsibility, more decisions, more risk. And if you can't handle pressure, you can't sustain success. Now let's go deeper. Most people try to avoid pressure. They stay in safe situations, avoid difficult decisions, delay uncomfortable actions. Because pressure feels overwhelming, but avoiding pressure comes at a cost. Because it keeps you small. It keeps you limited. It keeps you unprepared. And when real pressure comes, you collapse. Not because you're weak, but because you never trained. Now compare that to someone who embraces pressure, who puts themselves in challenging situations, who makes difficult decisions, who learns to stay calm when things get intense. That person becomes dangerous, not in a negative way, but in a powerful way, because now they are not controlled by emotion, they are guided by clarity. And clarity is what creates strong decisions. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where pressure becomes real. Markets drop, businesses struggle, income fluctuates, and in those moments, most people react emotionally. They panic. They sell too early. They quit too soon. But billionaires, they stay calm. They analyze. They adapt. They move strategically because they've trained their mind to handle pressure, and that gives them an advantage. Now here's something important. Staying calm under pressure is not natural. It's built through repetition, through experience, through awareness. Because every time you face pressure, you have a choice: react or respond. Reaction is emotional, fast, uncontrolled, driven by fear. Response is intentional, calm, thoughtful, driven by clarity. And that difference changes everything. Now think about this. Two people face the same challenge, same situation, same pressure. One reacts, the other responds. And over time, their lives look completely different because their decisions were different, and decisions create outcomes. Now here's your opportunity. Start training your response, not when things are easy, but when things are hard. When you feel stress, pause. When you feel overwhelmed, breathe. When you feel pressure, think. Because those small moments build your capacity. And over time, you become stronger, more stable, more focused. And that translates into every area of your life, especially money, because wealth requires stability, consistency, clear thinking, strong decisions, and without emotional control, you lose all of that. Now, here's a powerful truth. Your mindset in difficult moments defines your future, not your intentions, not your plans, but your response. So if you want to build wealth, you must build control over your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, because control creates clarity, and clarity creates power. This principle reflects a deeper idea seen across high-performance thinking, that a trained mind, one that stays steady under pressure, becomes unstoppable in any situation, as emphasized in teachings like. Because when your mind is strong, nothing outside of you can shake you. Now pause and ask yourself, how do you respond under pressure? Because that answer is shaping your future. And if you want to change it, you must start training it, one moment at a time, one decision at a time, until calm becomes your default and clarity becomes your strength. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful, because handling pressure is critical. But there is another habit that determines how you position yourself in the world, a habit that affects your opportunities, your income, and your ability to scale. And once you understand it, you will realize why being valuable is not enough. You must also know how to position that value. Chapter 11, Perception Creates Opportunity. Why? How you're seen determines how you're paid. There's a hard truth most people don't realize until it's too late. You can be skilled, talented, hardworking, and still be overlooked, still underpaid, still undervalued, still invisible. Because in the real world, value alone is not enough. Perception determines opportunity. Let that sink in, because this is where many people get stuck. They focus only on improving themselves, learning more, working harder, becoming better. And that's important, critical even. But if no one sees that value, if no one understands what you bring, if no one recognizes your capability, then your growth stays hidden. And hidden value rarely gets rewarded. Now let's be clear. This is not about pretending, not about faking success, not about becoming someone you're not. This is about clarity, communication, positioning. Because billionaires don't just build value, they position it. They make it visible, understandable, compelling, so opportunities can find them. Now think about this. Two people have the same skill, same ability, same results. But one communicates clearly, shows their work, positions themselves effectively, and the other stays quiet, hopes someone notices. Who do you think gets the opportunity? Who gets the promotion, the partnership, the deal, the one who is seen? Every time, because the world rewards clarity, not hidden potential. Now here's where it gets deeper. Perception is not just about others. It's also about how you see yourself. Because if you don't believe in your value, you will underplay it. You will hesitate, downplay your skills, avoid opportunities, and that becomes your reality. So positioning starts internally, with confidence, with clarity, with understanding what you bring to the table. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where perception becomes powerful. Your income is directly tied to how valuable you are perceived to be. Not just how valuable you are, but how valuable people believe you are. Because people pay based on perception. Businesses hire based on perception. Investors invest based on perception. So if you want to increase your income, you must increase both value and visibility. Now, here's the mistake most people make. They think, if I just work harder, it will show. But the truth, it often doesn't. Because hard work without communication goes unnoticed. So what do billionaires do differently? They make their value obvious. They articulate clearly what they do, how they do it, why it matters. They don't assume people will understand. They make it impossible to misunderstand, and that creates leverage. Now here's something powerful. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to show off. You just need to be clear. Clear in your message. Clear in your actions. Clear in your results. Because clarity builds trust, and trust creates opportunity. Now let's go even deeper. Positioning is not just about communication. It's about alignment. Where you place yourself, who you work with, what problems you solve, what markets you enter. Because the same skill can be worth 10 times more in a different environment. So it's not just about being good, it's about being in the right place, with the right message at the right time. And that multiplies your value. Now pause and ask yourself, do people clearly understand what you bring? Or are you expecting them to figure it out? Because that gap is costing you. Now here's your challenge. Starting today, define your value. Clearly, what do you do? What problems do you solve? Why does it matter? And then communicate it consistently, not once, not occasionally, but regularly. Because repetition builds recognition, and recognition creates opportunity. This idea connects with a deeper principle seen across leadership and influence, that your words, your clarity, and your confidence determine how others respond to you, as reflected in teachings like. Because if people don't feel your value, they won't act on it. Now let this sink in. You don't get paid for what you know. You get paid for what you can demonstrate and communicate. And once you understand that, everything changes. Your confidence, your direction, your opportunities. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful. Because positioning creates opportunity. But there is another habit that determines what you do with those opportunities. A habit that separates those who stay busy from those who actually build wealth. And once you understand it, you will realize why being productive is not the same as being effective. We'd also like to remind you that we have a private members community on our channel. All members can vote on the topic of the next video, have priority in the comment section, and, most importantly, gain access to exclusive videos and lessons covering the most relevant topics and information specific to this month. Thank you. Let's keep moving forward. Chapter 12. Busy versus effective. Why activity does not equal wealth. There's a dangerous illusion that traps millions of people every single day. It looks like progress. It feels like effort. It sounds like productivity. But in reality, it leads nowhere. That illusion is being busy. Now think about your day, from morning to night. How often are you moving, but not truly progressing? Answering messages, checking notifications, handling small tasks, constant motion. But at the end of the day, nothing meaningful has changed. No real growth, no real advancement, just exhaustion. Because here's the truth. Being busy is not the same as being effective. And this is where most people lose. They confuse movement with progress. They measure effort instead of outcomes. And over time, they stay stuck, working hard, but going nowhere. Now let's break this down. Busy people focus on tasks. Effective people focus on results. Busy people fill their time. Effective people prioritize impact. Busy people react. Effective people act with intention. And that difference creates completely different lives. Now here's why this matters. Because wealth is not built on how much you do. It's built on what actually moves the needle. The few actions that create the biggest results. And billionaires, they are obsessed with this. They don't try to do everything. They focus on what matters most because they understand something powerful. Not all actions are equal. Some actions create massive impact. Others just create noise. And if you spend your time on noise, you will never reach your potential. Now let's go deeper. Most people wake up and react. They check their phone, respond to messages, handle whatever comes their way, and before they know it, the day is gone, controlled by external demands. But effective people, they decide first what matters most today, what action will create real progress, and then they protect that time relentlessly because they know if they don't control their time, something else will. Now here's where it becomes uncomfortable because focusing on what matters means ignoring what doesn't. Saying no to distractions, to low-value tasks, to things that feel urgent but aren't important. And that's hard because saying no feels uncomfortable, but saying yes to everything costs you everything. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where effectiveness becomes critical. If you spend your time on low-value activities, your income stays limited. But if you focus on high-impact actions, your value increases, your income grows, your opportunities expand because your results are tied to your focus. Now here's a powerful shift. Start asking yourself, what is the highest value use of my time right now? Not the easiest, not the most comfortable, the most valuable. Because that question filters everything. And once you start thinking like this, your days change. You stop reacting, you start directing, you stop filling time, you start building results. Now here's something important. Effectiveness requires clarity. You must know your goals, your direction, your priorities, because without clarity, you will default to busy work. But with clarity, you focus, you execute, you move forward. Now pause and be honest. How much of your day is truly effective and how much is just activity? Because that difference is your growth. Now here's your challenge. Tomorrow, identify one high-impact task, just one, something that moves your life forward, and complete it before anything else. No distractions, no delays, just focus. Because that one habit will change everything, day by day, action by action, result by result. And over time, you will separate yourself from those who stay busy and those who build. This principle connects with a deeper truth seen across disciplined thinking, that focusing your energy on what truly matters is what creates real progress, not scattered effort, a pattern reflected in teachings like, because effort alone is not enough. Direction is what creates results. Now let this sink in. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters. And once you understand that, everything shifts. Your time, your energy, your outcomes. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful. Because being effective moves you forward. But there is another habit that determines how far your effort can scale. A habit that separates those who trade time for money from those who build systems that generate wealth. And once you understand it, you will realize why working harder is not the answer to becoming rich. Chapter 13, Leverage, the habit that breaks the time for money trap. There is a ceiling that most people never break. Not because they lack ambition, not because they lack effort, but because they are playing the wrong game. They trade time for money, hour for hour, day for day, and no matter how hard they work, There are only 24 hours in a day, which means there is always a limit. This is the trap, and it's one of the biggest reasons people never build real wealth. Because here's the truth, you cannot become rich by only trading your time. You can survive, you can live comfortably, but true wealth requires something else, leverage. Now let's slow this down. Leverage is simple in concept, but powerful in execution. It means using something to multiply your output without multiplying your effort. In other words, getting more results without working more hours. And billionaires, they build their entire lives around this idea. Now there are different forms of leverage: time leverage, skill leverage, capital leverage, technology leverage, but they all serve the same purpose: to expand your impact. Now let's break it into something real. Imagine you work 1 hour and get paid once. That's time-based income. Now imagine you create something once and it pays you repeatedly. A product, a system, an investment. That's leverage, because now your effort continues working even when you stop. And this is where everything changes, because instead of being limited by time, you begin to multiply it. Now here's where most people struggle. They think, I just need to work harder. I just need more hours. I just need more effort. But effort without leverage leads to exhaustion, not freedom, because you're always required to keep going, to keep trading, to keep working, and the moment you stop, income stops. But with leverage, that changes. You build once and benefit repeatedly. Now let's go deeper. Leverage requires a shift in thinking. You stop asking, how can I earn more today? And start asking, how can I build something that earns for me over time? That question opens new possibilities, because now you think in systems, not just tasks. You think in scale, not just effort. And scale is what creates wealth. Now here's something important. Leverage is not instant. It requires effort up front, time, energy, focus. You might work more in the beginning to build something that pays later. And that's where most people quit, because they don't see immediate results. But billionaires, they understand the delay, they accept it, because they know short-term effort creates long-term freedom. Now let's connect this to your life. Where are you trading time without building leverage? Where are you working without creating something that lasts? Because that's where the shift needs to happen. Now here's your challenge. Start thinking beyond today, beyond this week, beyond this month. What can you build that continues to work for you? A skill that scales, a system that runs, an investment that grows, something that breaks the time for money cycle, because once you do that, everything changes. Now, here's a powerful truth. Leverage is the bridge between effort and wealth. Without it, you stay limited. With it, you expand. Now pause and ask yourself, are you building leverage or just working harder? Because your answer determines your future. Now here's something deeper. Leverage is not just about money. It's about freedom, time freedom, decision freedom, life freedom. Because when your income is not tied to your time, you gain control. And control is the ultimate form of wealth. Now let this sink in. If you stop working, does your income stop too? If the answer is yes, then leverage is your next step. And once you start building it, you begin to escape the trap. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful, because leverage helps you scale. But there is another habit that determines how sustainable your growth becomes. a habit that controls your relationship with money itself, how you see it, how you use it, how you grow it. And once you understand it, you will realize why money is not the goal, but a tool. And how you use that tool determines everything. Chapter 14, Money is a Tool, the habit that changes your entire relationship with wealth. Most people misunderstand money. They see it as the goal, the destination, the finish line. If I just make enough, everything will be fine. But that belief quietly keeps them stuck. Because here's the truth. Money is not the goal. Money is a tool. And the moment you understand that, everything begins to shift. Now let's slow this down. A tool is something you use, not something you worship, not something you fear, not something you avoid, something you direct. With purpose, with clarity, with intention. But most people don't do that. They build emotional relationships with money. Fear when they don't have it, stress when they lose it, excitement when they gain it. And those emotions control their decisions instead of logic, instead of strategy, instead of clarity. Now here's the problem. If money controls your emotions, it will control your life, because every decision you make will be reactive, driven by feeling, not thinking. Now compare that to how billionaires see money. They detach. Not completely, but enough to stay in control. They don't panic when money moves. They don't celebrate impulsively. They observe. They analyze. They act intentionally, because for them, money is a tool for creation, not validation, not identity, creation. Now let's go deeper. When you see money as a tool, you start asking different questions. Instead of, how can I spend this? You ask, how can this create more value? Instead of, what can I buy? You ask, what can I build? And that shift changes your trajectory. Because now, money is not an endpoint. It's a starting point, a resource that fuels growth. Now here's something powerful. The way you treat small amounts of money is the same way you will treat large amounts. Because habits scale. If you misuse $100, you will misuse $10,000. If you use $100 intentionally, you will multiply $10,000. And this is why billionaires focus on behavior, not just numbers. Because numbers follow behavior, always. Now let's connect this to your life. Think about your current relationship with money. Do you avoid it, ignore it, fear it, or do you understand it, use it, direct it? Because that relationship is shaping your results. Now here's the shift. Start treating money like a tool, not something to hold, but something to use intentionally, strategically, with purpose. Now this doesn't mean spending everything. It means directing it, allocating it, putting it to work. Because idle money loses power, but active money creates growth. Now let's go even deeper. Money as a tool also changes your identity, because you stop measuring your worth by your bank account and start measuring it by your ability to create value. Because that ability is what generates money, not the other way around. Now pause and ask yourself, do you control your money, or does your money control you? Because that answer defines your current reality. Now here's your challenge. Every time money enters your life, pause and ask one question. What is the best use of this? Not the easiest, not the fastest, the best. Because that question alone will change your behavior, and behavior creates outcomes. This idea reflects a deeper principle seen across financial growth thinking, that money is not meant to be stored and feared, but used as a tool to create more value, a concept aligned with teachings like, because money is only powerful when it moves with intention. Now let this sink in. Money will not change your life until you change how you use it. And once you do, everything expands. Your thinking, your decisions, your opportunities. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful, because using money as a tool is critical. But there is another habit that determines how much money flows into your life, a habit that controls your confidence, your actions, and your willingness to go after bigger opportunities. And once you understand it, you will realize why believing you deserve more is not arrogance, but necessity. Chapter 15, Deserve More, the habit that expands what you allow into your life. There is a ceiling that has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with opportunity, nothing to do with talent, and yet it controls everything. That ceiling is what you believe you deserve. Now let's be honest. How many times have you held yourself back without realizing it? You hesitated to ask for more. You avoided bigger opportunities. You stayed in situations that no longer served you, not because you couldn't do more, but because deep down you didn't believe you deserved more. And here's the truth. You will never rise above the level of what you believe you are worthy of. Let that sit with you, because this is where everything begins. Not with money, not with strategy, but with belief. Now, this is not about arrogance. It's not about entitlement. It's about alignment. Because if you don't believe you deserve better, you will reject it. You will sabotage it. You will walk away from it, even when it's right in front of you. Now let's go deeper. Your belief system was built over time, through experiences, through environment, through what you were told. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. Stay safe. And slowly you created limits, invisible ones, but powerful, because they shaped your actions, and your actions created your results. Now, here's the shift. Billionaires don't think like that. They don't shrink their expectations. They expand them, because they understand something most people don't. If you don't believe you can have it, you will never go after it. And if you never go after it, it will never be yours. Simple, but powerful. Now think about your current life. What have you accepted that you know deep down you could outgrow? A job, a lifestyle, a mindset, something that feels comfortable but limiting, because that acceptance is coming from belief, not reality. Now imagine this. What if you truly believed that you could create more income, more freedom, more impact? How would you act differently? What decisions would you make? What risks would you take? Because belief drives behavior, and behavior creates outcomes. Now here's something important. Belief is not built overnight. It's built through evidence, small wins, small actions, small progress, stacked over time. So the goal is not to suddenly feel confident. The goal is to act, even when you don't, because action builds belief, not the other way around. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where belief becomes visible. If you believe you deserve more, you negotiate differently, you pursue bigger opportunities, you take calculated risks. But if you don't, you settle, you accept less, you stay where you are, and over time, that becomes your life. Now here's a powerful truth. The life you have is a reflection of what you've allowed, not just what you wanted, but what you accepted. And if you want more, you must raise that standard. Now here's your challenge. Starting today, stop shrinking your expectations. Stop playing small. Start asking for more from life, from work, from yourself. Because asking creates possibility, and possibility creates movement. This idea connects deeply with a powerful principle seen across growth-focused thinking, that your life expands in direct proportion to what you believe you are worthy of asking for, a concept aligned with teachings like, because if you never ask, nothing changes. Now pause and ask yourself, what do I truly believe I deserve? And be honest, because that answer is shaping your reality. Now here's the shift. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You just need a decision that you will no longer settle for less than your potential. Because once you make that decision, everything changes. Your actions, your standards, your results. Now let this sink in. You don't get what you want. You get what you believe you deserve, and once that belief expands, so does your life. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful, because believing you deserve more is critical. But there is another habit that determines whether you actually follow through. A habit that controls your consistency, your execution, and your ability to keep going, even when no one is watching. And once you understand it, you will realize why consistency is the real secret behind every form of wealth. Chapter 16, Consistency, the habit that quietly builds everything. There is a reason why some people eventually break through while others stay stuck for years. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even opportunity. It's something far less exciting, but far more powerful: consistency. Now let's be real. Consistency is not glamorous. It's not viral. It's not flashy. It doesn't get attention. It's quiet, repetitive, sometimes even boring. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. Because they want results without repetition. They want progress without patience. But here's the truth. Everything you want is built through what you repeat. Not what you do once, not what you start, but what you continue. Now think about this. Anyone can have a good day. Anyone can feel motivated, take action, make progress. But can you do it again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the week after that? Because that is where the real difference is made. Now let's go deeper. Consistency compounds, just like money. Small actions, repeated daily, create massive results over time. But here's the challenge. At the beginning, it feels like nothing is happening. You put in the work, but you don't see immediate results. And that's where most people quit, because they mistake lack of visible progress for lack of actual progress. But the truth? The progress is happening. Just beneath the surface, skills improving, habits forming, systems building. And then one day, it shows. Suddenly, and people call it overnight success. But you know the truth. It was consistency. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where consistency becomes critical. Investing once won't change your life. Tracking your finances once won't create control. Building a skill once won't create income. It's the repetition, the daily actions, the weekly habits, the long-term commitment that creates results. And billionaires, they understand this deeply. They don't rely on bursts of effort. They rely on systems of consistency, because they know inconsistent effort creates inconsistent results. But consistent effort creates predictable growth. Now here's something important. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. You will have off days. You will feel tired. You will lose momentum. That's normal. But the key is you don't stop. You adjust. You continue. You keep moving. Because stopping breaks the cycle. And rebuilding it takes time. Now let's go even deeper. Consistency builds identity. Because every time you follow through, you reinforce who you are. Disciplined, focused, committed. And over time, that becomes your default. Not something you try to be, but something you are. Now pause and ask yourself, what habits are you repeating daily? Because those habits are building your future, not your goals, not your intentions, your habits. Now here's your challenge. Choose one habit, just one, something that moves your life forward, and commit to it daily. No excuses, no negotiation, just consistency. Because that one habit will create momentum, and momentum changes everything. This idea reflects a deeper truth seen across high-performance thinking. That consistency, not intensity, is what builds real strength and long-term success. A principle echoed in teachings like, because intensity fades, but consistency builds. Now let this sink in. You don't need to be extreme. You need to be consistent. And once you master that, everything begins to align. Your habits, your results, your life. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful. Because consistency builds momentum. But there is another habit that determines whether your progress accelerates or stays slow. A habit that controls how quickly you learn from others, how you avoid mistakes, and how you grow faster than those around you. And once you understand it, you will realize why trying to figure everything out alone is one of the biggest delays to your success. Chapter 17, Borrowed Wisdom, Why You Must Learn from People. Ahead of you, there is a mistake that costs people years of their life, not days, not months, years. And it sounds logical at first. I'll figure it out myself. I'll learn through experience. I'll take my time. And while that sounds independent, it's also incredibly inefficient. Because here's the truth. You don't need to make every mistake yourself to learn what works. And billionaires understand this better than anyone. They don't rely only on personal experience. They accelerate their growth by learning from others. People who are already ahead. People who have already failed. People who have already succeeded. Because why take 10 years to learn something that someone else can teach you in one? Now let's slow this down. This is not about copying blindly. It's about studying patterns, understanding principles, learning what works and why it works. Because success leaves clues, and those clues are everywhere, in books, in conversations, in stories, in experiences shared, but most people ignore them. They try to reinvent everything, start from zero, and that slows them down massively. Now think about this. If you want to build wealth, why would you not study people who have already done it? Their habits, their decisions, their mindset. Because those patterns can guide you, help you avoid mistakes, help you move faster, help you think differently. Now here's something important. Learning from others requires humility. You must accept that someone else knows more, that someone else has experience you don't, and that can be uncomfortable. But it's also powerful, because the moment you open yourself to learning, you expand your thinking, your awareness, your possibilities. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where borrowed wisdom becomes valuable. Financial mistakes can be expensive, costly, time-consuming. But if you learn from others, you can avoid many of them. You can make better decisions faster, and that accelerates your growth. Now, here's the key. Don't just consume information. Study it. Break it down. Ask questions. Why did this work? Why did this fail? What can I apply? Because passive learning creates awareness, but active learning creates transformation. Now let's go deeper. There are two types of people: those who learn only from their own experience and those who learn from everyone's experience. The first group moves slowly. The second group moves exponentially faster because they multiply their learning. They don't wait to fail to understand. They prepare, they adapt, they grow. Now here's your opportunity. Start seeking wisdom intentionally, not randomly, not occasionally, but consistently. Find people ahead of you, listen, observe, learn, because every insight is a shortcut. Every lesson is time saved, and time saved is progress gained. This idea reflects a deeper principle seen across high-performance growth, that success is not about working harder alone, but learning smarter by leveraging the experience of those ahead, a concept aligned with teachings like, because you don't need to start from zero. You can start from knowledge. Now pause and ask yourself, who are you learning from? And is that learning moving you forward or keeping you where you are? Because that answer is shaping your growth. Now here's the shift. Stop trying to figure everything out alone. Start learning strategically, because the faster you learn, the faster you grow. Now let this sink in. You don't have to walk the entire path if someone has already left you a map. And once you start using that map, everything accelerates. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful, because learning from others accelerates your growth. But there is another habit that determines whether you actually take advantage of opportunities when they appear. A habit that controls your courage, your timing, and your willingness to act when it matters most. And once you understand it, you will realize why hesitation is one of the most expensive habits you can have. Chapter 18, Act Fast, Think Smart. Why hesitation is costing you more than failure. There is a moment that decides more than people realize. It's not the moment you succeed. It's not the moment you fail. It's the moment you hesitate. That split second when you think, maybe later, I'm not ready. I need more time. And just like that, the opportunity passes silently, unnoticed, gone. Because here's the truth. Opportunities don't wait for certainty. They reward action. And billionaires, they understand this deeply. They don't wait until everything is perfect. They don't wait until fear disappears. They act while others hesitate. Now let's be clear. This is not about reckless action. It's not about jumping into everything blindly. It's about decisive action, moving when the moment is right, without overthinking, without unnecessary delay, because hesitation has a cost, a hidden one, and it adds up over time. Now think about your life. How many opportunities have you delayed? Ideas you didn't start, conversations you didn't have, risks you didn't take, not because you couldn't, but because you hesitated. And those moments, they shape your future more than you think. Because every time you hesitate, you train your mind to stay safe, to avoid risk, to avoid uncertainty. And over time, that becomes your default. But billionaires, they train the opposite. They train action. They build a habit of moving forward, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain, because they know speed of action creates momentum, and momentum creates results. Now let's go deeper. Hesitation often comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of making the wrong decision. But here's the shift. Failure is not the real cost, delay is. Because failure teaches you. It gives you feedback. It moves you forward. But hesitation keeps you stuck, exactly where you are. Now imagine this. Two people see the same opportunity. One hesitates, analyzes, overthinks, waits. The other acts, takes a step, learns, adjusts. Fast forward a year, their lives look completely different, not because one was smarter, but because one moved and the other didn't. Now, here's something important. Action doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be intentional, because clarity comes after movement, not before. Most people wait to feel ready, but readiness is created through action, not thought. Now let's connect this to money, because this is where hesitation becomes expensive. Missed investments, missed opportunities, missed growth, all because of delay. And those delays compound over time, costing you not just money, but momentum. And momentum is everything. Now here's your opportunity. Start acting faster, not recklessly, but decisively. When you see an opportunity, evaluate quickly and move, because speed creates advantage. Now here's your challenge. The next time you feel hesitation, pause and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? And then take one step forward, just one, because that step breaks the pattern. And once you break it, everything changes. This principle reflects a deeper truth seen across high-performance thinking, that waiting for perfect conditions keeps you stuck, while action creates clarity and progress, a mindset aligned with teachings like, because action is what separates potential from reality. Now let this sink in. The cost of hesitation is the life you could have lived. And once you understand that, you stop waiting, you start moving. Now, in the next chapter, we're going to uncover something even more powerful, because taking action is critical. But there is another habit that determines whether your actions actually lead to freedom. A habit that controls your ability to say no, to protect your time, and to stay focused on what truly matters. And once you understand it, you will realize why boundaries are one of the most underrated habits of the wealthy. Chapter 19, Boundaries Build Wealth, the habit that protects your time, energy, and future. There is a word that most people struggle to say, a simple word, a powerful word, no. And yet, that one word can change your entire life. Because here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter, you say no to something that does. Let that sink in. Because this is where most people lose control. Not because they don't have time, but because they don't protect it. They say yes to distractions, to low-value tasks, to other people's priorities, and slowly, their life fills up with things that don't move them forward. Now think about your day. How much of it is truly yours? How much of it is spent on things that matter versus things that just demand attention? Because that difference is everything. Now let's go deeper. Boundaries are not about being rude. They're not about pushing people away. They're about clarity, about deciding what deserves your time and what doesn't. And billionaires, they are masters of this, not because they have more time, but because they protect it relentlessly. They don't try to do everything. They don't try to please everyone. They focus, and that focus creates power. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, because setting boundaries means disappointing people. It means saying no. It means choosing your priorities over someone else's expectations. And that can feel difficult. But here's the truth. If you don't set boundaries, someone else will set them for you. And you won't like the result. Now, let's connect this to money, because this is where boundaries become critical. If you don't protect your time, you can't focus on high-value work. If you can't focus, you can't build. If you can't build, you can't grow. So every time you allow distractions, you are not just losing time, you are losing opportunity. Now here's something powerful. You don't need to change your entire life today. You just need to change your direction, because direction determines destination. Now pause right now and ask yourself, what am I going to do after this? Not what sounds good, not what feels inspiring, but what will you actually do? That's because that answer is your future. Now here's your challenge. Make one decision, just one, something you will start today, not tomorrow, not next week, today, and commit to it. Because that one decision is the beginning. Now here's the truth. You are not one breakthrough away from a different life. You are one decision repeated daily. That's it. Simple, but powerful. Now let's bring everything together. You are the asset. You control your habits. You direct your money. You protect your focus. You embrace discomfort. You act with discipline. You think long term. You choose your environment. You handle pressure. You position your value. You focus on what matters. You build leverage. You use money as a tool. You believe in more. You stay consistent. You learn from others. You act without hesitation. You set boundaries. You take calculated risks. You use failure as fuel. You protect your wealth. You align with purpose. You build your identity. All of this leads to one thing, a different life, but only if you act. Now, here's the final truth. No one is coming to change your life, but you have the power to change it yourself. Not someday, not eventually, now. And if this audiobook resonated with you, don't let it end here. Turn it into action, because action is what creates results. Now take a moment and make this personal. If something in this journey hit you, if a line stayed with you, if a realization shifted something inside you, acknowledge it, because that's where change begins. And if you're ready to commit, make it real. Consider this your personal contract, a decision to show up, to build, to grow. And if you want to go one step further, share it. Say it out loud. Write it down. Declare what you're changing, because when you declare it, you give it weight. And if you know someone who needs this message, share it with them, because sometimes one idea, one shift can change everything. Now, one final question. What do you want the next audiobook to be about? Your growth, your discipline, your mindset, your relationships? Because this journey doesn't end here. It continues with you. Now let this be your final line. You don't become wealthy by chance. You become wealthy by choice. And today, you choose